Good evening from New York. The new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll shows a majority of Americans now approve of the job Barack Obama is doing as president. 52% approve, 41% disapprove. It's only the second time since October of 2009 that the president's approval has been higher than 50%. The number of people who say they view President Obama positively is at 54%. And 53% gave President Obama a very good rating for his ability to handle a crisis, his highest rating since April of 2009. But the successful mission to get the world's most wanted terrorist wasn't a crisis. The president set a goal, a clear, limited goal, to get Osama bin Laden, and then with his team pursued that goal carefully, deliberately, and thoroughly, as the president explained in an interview with 60 Minutes.
Shortly after I got into office, I brought Leon Panetta privately into the Oval Office, and I said to him, we need to redouble our efforts in hunting bin Laden down. And I want us to start putting more resources, more focus, and more urgency into that mission. What I told them when they first came to me with this evidence was, even as you guys are building a stronger intelligence case, let's also start building an action plan to figure out if, in fact, we make a decision that this is him or we've got a good chance that we've got him, how are we going to deal with him?
The president also pointed out that the debate among his team in the Situation Room was a key element in this success.
Every time I sit down in the Situation Room, every one of my advisors around there knows I expect them to give me their best assessments. And so the fact that there were some who voiced doubts about this approach was invaluable, because it meant the plan was sharper. It meant that we had thought through all of our options. It meant that when I finally did make the decision, I was making it based on the very best information.
The president admitted he was nervous about the mission, though not about its objective.
At the end of the day, this was still a 55-45 situation. I mean, we could not say definitively that bin Laden was there. Had he not been there, then there would have been some significant consequences. It was the longest 40 minutes of my life, with the possible exception of when Sasha got meningitis when she was 3 months old, and I was waiting for the doctor to tell me that she was all right. It was a very tense situation.
Were you nervous?
As nervous as I was about this whole process, the one thing I didn't lose sleep over was the possibility of taking bin Laden out. Justice was done. And I think that anyone who would question that the perpetrator of mass murder on American soil didn't deserve what he got needs to have their head examined.
Joining me now is Eugene Robinson, associate editor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for The Washington Post and an MSNBC political analyst. Thanks for joining me tonight, Gene.
Great to be here, Lawrence.
Gene, is it your sense that this is a minor polling bump for the president, or has something fundamentally changed in the political landscape?
I go with option B. I think this is a fundamental change. The numbers will go up, they'll go down, but I think there has been a fundamental change in the way a lot of people see President Obama. You saw that kind of steeliness. There's a little bit of Clint Eastwood in that 60 Minutes interview, and that's a side of the president that I think it's kind of been there all the time. I think a lot of people haven't really seen it, or seen it as that, and so I do think that's a fundamental change in his relationship with some Americans.
This is that 3 a.m. phone call that was first raised in the Democratic primary campaign for president, where the Clinton camp raised the question of, was Barack Obama ready for that middle-of-the-night Situation Room, commander-in-chief decision-making? And this seems to put that question to rest.
I think you have to say it puts that question to rest. And look, you see the pictures of the president in the Situation Room with all the national security officials, and they're looking at the monitors. And these visuals are important, and I think they reinforce the image of this as a president who has taken that 3 a.m. phone call and will take the next one, and will handle the situations as appropriately as they come up.
Now, the NBC News poll also asked people who they plan to vote for president. 45% said they'd probably vote for President Obama. That's up just a couple of points. 30% say they will probably vote for the Republican. That's down from 38 last month. Each one of those versions of it were good for President Obama. But what does this do to the Republican approach to campaigning against Barack Obama? It seems like that 3 a.m. phone call opening is no longer there.
Yeah, I think the whole national security question, that there's something wobbly on national security about Obama, I think that's off the table. I actually think the really important figure in that poll was that 5% change, drop or increase rather in the number of people who said whether or not they vote on a Republican depends on the Republican candidate. Went up from 11 to 16. That's not where the Republicans want to be right now, because if you notice, there was a Republican debate last week that didn't exactly present a passel of candidates who were going to take on Barack Obama. So if it's anybody but Obama, then sure, the GOP is sitting pretty. But if it's candidate to candidate, mano a mano, Obama already beats every major Republican one-on-one. I think those margins probably have increased over the last week, and you'll see that in the next individual polls.
Gene, the next big fight, obviously, is the debt ceiling, and how do we get an agreement on how to raise the debt ceiling, which is going to have to happen at some point in the summer. What does this do for the president's credibility in that fight? Is there any carryover from an event like this into a showdown over the debt ceiling, especially when there will be much talk of crisis? The president will be trying to describe to the country the chaos and the crisis that would occur if we don't raise the debt ceiling. Polling indicates right now that the country doesn't believe that it would be a great disaster if we don't raise the debt ceiling. Does this somehow add to the president's strength going into that?
I think it does, but in this particular fight, I think it doesn't give him a whole lot extra. It adds incrementally, incrementally reinforces his hand. I think, it's a different kind of fight, the whole budget issue. So this helps, but not a whole lot.
Gene Robinson, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Great to be here.